All right.
Hello and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Hand-Eye Supply Curiosity Club. We are your hosts this evening. I'm Will Lacoma, and this is Tobias Berblinger. And together we have a number of curious and exciting topics to share with you.
As attendees of the Hand-Eye Supply Curiosity Club, you are now all members, provided you adhere to our philosophy, ex curiositas scientia. We pledge to learn without prejudice in pursuit of our mutual goal, perpetual noviceship. We admit that it is impossible to know everything about anything, and thus we remain perpetually curious and perpetually novice.
This is our flag and our mascot, Franklin. The lightning bolt represents the receipt of knowledge, the enlightenment of illumination, and the resonance of truth understood. It awakens and excites us and makes us hungry for more. And
now we are very happy to introduce Trevor Blake. Between 2009 and 2011, Trevor walked the length and breadth of downtown Portland. When he found a memorial, he transcribed what it said and where it was. His book, Portland Memorials, includes all of the memorials in downtown Portland.
Thank you. The subtitle for this talk on the poster was "The Sound of the Hammer Greets You on Every Side," which is a quote from someone visiting Oregon long ago Portland from long ago from Oregon City. They found it very industrious, but that plaque is hanging up in Paranoid Park, where another sense of hammers on every side might be in play today. So O'Brien Square is where that is. As the introduction said, I spent 3 years walking in circles downtown, writing down the memorials. I wrote down what they said and where they were, just using pencil and paper. No GPS, no camera, no video camera, no tracking software, nothing special, just pencil and paper. I brought the notebooks to pass around if anyone would like to see them. The decision was, in the writing of it, and the editing of it, and the publishing of it, I wanted to make something that inspired people to actually go see the memorials. That's why there's no maps in the book. There are no photographs. You read about it, which is hopefully just enough to get you to go see it. My definition of memorial was something made by one person about another person for a third person to see. It could be a person or a group, or an idea, something like the Commerce Building. I included that because someone felt commerce was important. Or the Friendship House. Well, somebody thought friendship was important, but not privately important. That third group, that third person needed to see the friendship and the commerce. I did not differentiate between public memorials paid for by the city or the state or the nation and private things put up by whoever owned that building at some point long ago in the past. Everything that was more or less a memorial got included. And something I learned from that is there's absolutely no standardization. There's no central authority that says this is or isn't a memorial, this can or can't go up. It's what you can get away with, what sticks on the wall and stays there for a while. I didn't do any outside research for the book. I would go to the building and see the plaque and write down what it said, but I wouldn't go to the library or the internet and find out more about it. Just whatever it said at the site, because I wanted a record of what a complete stranger to the city would see. And so that hopefully if, say, someone owns a hotel and they have information about the hotel, they can see this is what we're actually saying about ourselves. And if somebody else makes a memorial to Aunt Bessie, the girls, we miss you. Well, that's all we know about Aunt Bessie and the girls. We don't know anything else. We don't have any way to know. And maybe that's part of what they were hoping for, but sometimes you want to know more about Aunt Bessie and the girls. And I didn't do any editorializing of the book. It's just where they were and what they were. So tonight's more the editorializing of the cool ones and the weird ones and the inconsistent ones, which were so many of them. The first case I found of that was one of the strongest. I started on Waterfront Park and zigzagged through downtown So I soon came to the Battleship Oregon Park in Tom McCall Waterfront Park, where in a small area, there's the mast of the ship, there's some chains, some links of the anchor chain, and the shield at the front of the ship, as seen here. And in this small area, there are a good half dozen plaques about this one ship. If you're looking at one, you can turn your head and you can see the other. They couldn't be closer, but they don't have the same information on them. One plaque will say it was launched in 1893, right next to it, one that says 1895. One of the first things that the Oregon did was go from San Francisco to Key West through the Straits of Magellan in the shortest time that had ever been done, but that is either 66 or 68 days, depending on which of these completely adjacent plaques you look at. And it probably doesn't matter. It's not bad that they're inconsistent, but it doesn't make them look like they cared to even lie. Like if one, well, this one says 66, let's just go with 66, even though we know it's 73. Let's go with 6, so it looks good. Another inconsistency I found was at the downtown library, there are hundreds of names carved on the side of the building, on the benches around the building, and some of the names are misspelled. And to fix that, they would just chisel in the correct letter over it. Lawrence Stern is spelled with a U first or a W first, but now spelled with both a U and a W. An inconsistency that I had not expected at all was things move and things change and things go up and things come down. And in just the 3 years of going from one side of downtown to the other, things disappeared. Entire buildings disappeared, and the plaques that were on them, buildings named after people, are gone now. And other things came into being. There was a point where I just stopped because I couldn't go back across town to a block I'd already been to and make sure that was right again. So in some ways, my book is now a memorial of this is what downtown looked like during these 3 years. It doesn't look that way anymore. An example of that is Tom Hardy's statue of the 3 Colts that used to be in Pioneer Square for years and years and years disappeared and now has reappeared up the street. Well, I put it in the book as gone because it was gone during the time I was working that block. So it's not in the book, but it's really there. Go see it. There are some memorials downtown that are missing or hidden or otherwise obscured. One is at the Bishop House, which is at 2nd and Stark. It was the house where the bishop lived back when the church was more powerful in town. Now it's a restaurant. And there used to be a plaque in the front of it saying that when they were doing restoration to fix the building up, get it up to code, they found in the basement a telephone wire that wasn't on any of the schematics. So they traced it, and they found that this phone line went directly from the basement of this restaurant to, or the bishop's basement, directly to the police station. And they did a little more research and talked to people who'd lived through that time, and they learned that that's where the speakeasy was, in the bishop's basement. And so when the raid was going to come, they'd get on the horn and say, okay, get the mayor out, we're going to arrest everybody. And that's why there was this strange phone number. And that's on a plaque, but that plaque is now covered with a marquee of the menu of the restaurant. So that's hopefully still there underneath, but maybe not. Or maybe they moved it inside, but it's certainly not, it's not visible anymore. Also on 2nd and Washington is the Waldo Building, named after Judge Waldo, who found Bagby Hot Springs, was a pioneer judge in the territory, and this is a building that he set up. When that building was being restored, they found evidence of some of the previous tenants of some of the Chinese associations that had been there, including the Tong associations and the opium dens that had been there. And for whatever reason, that was also included on the plaque. This is where the opium den was. But you have to dig to see that plaque because they put some shrubs in front of it. You have to kind of move them aside because maybe that's not what they want the building to be known for, is that part of its history. There's a third missing memorial I would like to mention, the Louis Louis Memorial. In the 1960s, the Kingsmen recorded Louis Louis here in Portland, Oregon, near 13th and Stark, a studio that used to be there. And that studio was a studio, then it was more or less abandoned, empty, cheap rent. A retired lawyer bought that space, and it became the Center for Rational Thought, one of the very few atheist buildings on the planet. And I think there's 2 in North America, and that was one. Not a lot of traffic in and out of the place, but I worked at a bookstore across the street where American Apparel is now. And I would look out and see Center for Rational Thought. Oh, I must live in Portland or something. Then one day there was a big hullabaloo. The place was just silent for years, and then there was a huge crowd outside, and I looked out and I asked a friend, and it was the anniversary of the recording of Louis Louis. So there were the 4 Kingsmen, and in front of them a lot of Japanese news crews, and behind them a big swath of all the Center for Rational Thought atheists, because this was their day. They were going to get on national and international TV, and atheism was going to make it. This is the turning point. And a plaque. This is the original site, the recording of Louis Louis. And that plaque lasted maybe 8 days and then gone. So some collector has it, somebody took it for the metal of it, hard to say. It's totally gone. Even the glue stain on the wall is gone. Now that's a window of the newer shops that are there. But there's a super secret Core 77 member Curiosity Club info, his secret handshake, only piece of information memorial that I will reveal to you now, which is the 4 Kingsmen were asked, well, come on inside, and they looked around, and would you like something to drink? No. Well, here's where the studio was, this little room. This is where we recorded the vocals, which is the key component of Louis Louis. And they signed it. They signed the door to that little room. The Center for Rational Thought changed its name to United States Atheist and moved to Foster. And they stole the door. So if you go there and if you ask nicely, they might usher you into the back room, and there's this big blue door with 4 names on it, the Kingsmen, and that's the only record, public, even half public, of Louis Louis here in town. When I started this project, I thought it would be a good summer project, and there'd be a few hundred memorials. But it took 3 years, and there were a few thousand memorials. It was much, much more involved than I thought. It was like a fractal, where the closer you hold something, and the more pieces you break off from it, the more pieces there are to it. The more memorials there are, memorials piled on top of memorials. One of the memorials I found after I finished was in the Northwest Park blocks. There's the new relatively new bocce ball courts. And there are little metal strips at either end that you have to throw the little white ball past to start the game. Well, on those little metal strips are the names of the donors. Thank you to these donors. That's a memorial that I'd have included if I'd had my magnifying glass out that day when I was going through the Northwest Park blocks. I missed it. Again at Battleship Park, where the Tower of the Oregon is, there's a stone. So in the park that's memorializing the Oregon and its crew, there's a stone memorializing Spanish-American war nurses. So that's 2 layers. And then on top of that stone is a plaque honoring U.S. Merchant Marines. So in this one little area, the layers of memorials pile on top of each other. would it have been better if everybody had their own? Maybe it's cheaper to piggyback like that. Why was that decision made? Is it disrespectful to the nurses that the Merchant Marines are sharing that space? There's also a randomness to memorials. In the Oregon Park, there's a flagpole, and if you look at the flagpole, there's a little plaque for Gene Autry. I don't know that he was ever in Portland, singing cowboy, or if he had any Portland connection, but there's a little, to Gene Autry, a real American memorial here in Portland. It's kind of like the Joan of Arc statue in Southeast. I'm not sure that Joan of Arc ever came here or had strong feelings about Portland, but there's a big statue over here. There are at least 4 plaques in Pioneer Square stating this is the site of the first schoolhouse. There's not 2 feet between them. And when they're putting one up, did they not see the one before? Did they not? Should we have maybe honored somebody else or something else? Are we adding information? No, it's site of first schoolhouse. The wording is almost the same, but that's what happened. It could be that there was no means to look at an overview of the memorials, and I hope that my book can serve that now, that someone thinking about making a plaque or a stone or naming a building can look at what other people have done and not repeat mistakes. Some of the layering of Portland history and Portland memorials occurs over time. The parks where Occupy Portland were not too long ago were the site of some of the earliest marches of the Bonus Army, who were asking for the same things, asking for bringing home the troops, asking for just payment of those who had been promised payment. Those parks, even prior to that, were temperance parks. The leading ladies of the city said that they needed an escape from the evil of men and their drink. And so Chapman Park and Lonsdale Park were temperance parks. No men allowed, only women and children. There's no plaque about that, though. The memorial that makes the reference to the oldest part of Portland is on the waterfront, and it simply says the clearing. And that's the first non-native name for this area. When some of the earliest Russian fur traders were coming through, it was a place where there was a clearing on the river, so you could pull your canoe over and make a fire and get something to eat. And so in the cement on Waterfront Park is the clearing. And part of the function of the clearing was people could come there looking for work, especially loggers. As more and more settlers were coming through, they could come here and look for work, dragging the timber down from the Nob Hill area to the river and sail it down the river. The lumber, the big logs, were carried on skids. And I've read in 2 reputable sources, for whatever that means, that that is the origin of the term skid row. People coming looking for work, you go to where the skids are in the skid row, taking the big logs down to the river, which is one of the earliest and most fundamental streets of Portland, Burnside, the one that defines Northwest. That's where the skids were, going through downtown to the river. And so this place where people were looking for work and down on their luck, from settlers' times to territory times to state times to Portland times, is still where the homeless shelters are. It's still where the social services area are. Like, that area is designated for desperation only. Some of the questions people have asked me about working on this book is, was I ever bothered? Because I would be circling these buildings and taking notes and circling the building and taking notes. Nobody ever gave me any mind. So if you want to do something, just carry a clipboard. The old advice is they'll leave you be. The cover of the book is from 1912. It's by a fellow named Bennett, who was one of the city leaders of the city. And he had it in mind that Portland was already looking old-fashioned in 1912. It should be raised. The streets should be widened, the buildings raised up, and it would look all modern and fancy. So that I chose for the cover of the book a Portland that never happened, and I hope never will happen. The only thing that remains is under the base of the T on the cover, you can just barely see Union Station. Otherwise, that's a Portland that never happened. Again, I didn't include any maps or any photos in the book, and people have asked why, and it was to inspire people to go see the memorials for themselves, take their own pictures. I have told 2 lies this evening, one in the book and one I've told you. It is not every memorial in downtown Portland. When I came to Pioneer Square, those thousands of names in the center of it, I conceded the field. The area around it, the sidewalk area of Pioneer Square, still took 3 days of just those names. But the ones in the middle are not in the book. There's no list of those anywhere. And I think the reason there's no list of them anywhere is because those bricks wear out. And every generation they'll sell them to the city of, be remembered forever, honor your family or your place of work, and people will buy those bricks, and then a couple decades later they'll sell that same brick again to somebody else. So maybe that's why there's no complete list, because it's evolving like the rest of the memorials. People have asked me if I'm going to do a walking tour of the city or make an application for computers or phones with this information. If I'm going to put it on Google Maps, if I'm going to get the latitude, longitude information, and the answer to that is all completely no. Because I want someone else to do that. That changes the project from my actually engaging my feet and my eyes and my hands and writing to a computer project. And I prefer the field research. And I'm also just not skilled at the other stuff, whereas some people are tremendously skilled at it and could take this data and make something far better than I ever could. And to that end, I've put the book in the public domain. Anyone who buys it can use it for any purpose. Scan it, make an app, sell it, retire early. Don't even have to say thanks, don't even have to give credit. Anything that anyone wants to do with this book is welcome to do it. Because I had the same feeling writing this book as Joseph Szymanski did when he gave the city the Szymanski Fountain in the Southwest Park blocks. It's a triangular fountain that has the distinctive feature of fountains for people, but also on the ground level are fountains for dogs and horses. He said he gave the city that statue and that fountain to express in small measure gratitude for what the city has done for me, and I have given my book to the world for the same reason. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes, please.
So, was it conscious of you just to exclude internal public space embodiments?
Yes.
Because there's, public space indoors.
I decided to only do things that were either on the sidewalk or visible from the sidewalk, in part so that it would be more likely someone in a wheelchair could see what I saw. Not all the buildings are equally accessible. And inside, I had the sense things were going to be changing more often. That's probably wrong. And there was only so much time that I was willing to be on any particular block. There are wonderful exhibits in many buildings of that building in particular, or things from the building, the great ironwork that was taken down in the 1950s. Sometimes you'll find it inside the building. But it was a conscious choice, yes.
So I read an interview that you did about the book, and there was something about African American monuments being thrown in the river. I'd like to know more about that story.
There's the Oregon, parts of the Oregon Waterfront Park, the shield part of the chain, and the tower. The two smokestacks used to be a mile north at a Liberty Ship Memorial Park. In Portland and St. John's area are where the Liberty ships were made. It was one of the earlier integrated work sites in Portland. And the Liberty ships had a role in World War II, and the Oregon served in war after war for decade after decade after decade. There was a point in the 1990s where that park was being developed. They were putting in some condos. And the two smokestacks from the Oregon were put on a truck and taken away, and I've never found out where they went. Maybe they were just taken to the same scrapyard as everything else, but they couldn't do it in the public eye. The other Liberty ship pieces were thrown in the river. So if you go to the Albers Mill building, just next, I think, to the Broadway Bridge, there's a small walkway. And if you go down the walkway, there's a small wall that sticks out into the river, and next to that wall, you'll see the pieces of the Liberty ship in the embankment, in the water. So that's what I was mentioning in the interview, which was in the Scanner, the only newspaper that's had anything to say about my book. So thanks to the Scanner. Yes, please.
I think my stepdad might have a door on the Oregon, or the Oregon.
Wow.
He's a river pilot. He used to stand that stuff. I think I remember from as a kid him saying something about that, which would be cool. I'll tell you about it.
Please do. Yeah.
If that's true.
Yeah.
But
Even if it's not true.
Yeah, all right, we got it. Yeah. And I was just wondering, did you run across any incidents of sort of illegal plaques or plaques that were thrown up by people who didn't really own property or maybe a statue put up? Is there anything that's basically kind of that people just took their own initiative and made a memorial that's still around?
I'd say a third of them are self-generated. If it's from the Lang Syne Society or from the city, they'll say so. And almost none of them say that. It'll be somebody owned the deli on a particular block, and the guy that worked there for 50 years, they put up a little thing to him, and the little thing just stays there after it turns into a flower shop, and after it turns into an empty building.
That's cool.
Yeah, the majority of them have no sense that they're official or that they're registered anywhere. My friend Damian Ramsey, who passed on a few years ago, there's a plaque for him, and it's at the campus of Portland State University near the library. So his family, when they wanted to have some little marker for him, went to the library and said, "We'd like to do this," and there was no procedure for it. Well, I guess you should pay us some money, but we don't know how much or how to do it, so just kind of, what do you think is fair? And they worked out a deal, so there's this little plaque. And I think that's how it happens most of the time. It's what you can get away with, what you can chain to a pole and stay there.
So if you want a memorial for whatever reason, then just kind of really don't just go ahead and do it. And see how
You should definitely go ahead and do it.
Nice.
That's what all of history is. All of human history is what can you get away with. This piece of wood here is from the deck of the Oregon. When it was sold, it used to be just a floating barge with the flat deck of teak wood. And when it was finally sold for scrap, a fellow bought it to use the teak wood to deck his own yacht, and he gave that little scrap to his nephew, who held on to it for about 50 years. And when he heard about my book, he said, "Oh, you need this more than I do." So that's my little piece of stolen history. And things are there, the door, the piece of wood.
I gotta check on that.
All over town, yes. The other falsehood of tonight's presentation is in the book. There's a lie in the book. One of the pieces of information is completely false. It has no bearing at all on what's really there. And that's my little marker, like injecting a medicine in a bloodstream. If someone does use this, and I hope that they do, if my little lie shows up in there, then that'll be my little trick on them. Yes. But I've never told anyone what it is. And
As Easter eggs are
it's my little Easter egg, yes.
but negative Easter eggs.
Yes. So,
I enjoyed looking through your notebooks.
thank you.
And I'm
Yes.
wondering if in future editions, perhaps you could include some of the pages of your process and work.
Perhaps. I might do that. I might scan a few more and put them online. It's not something I'd seen done before, so I invented how I was going to do it, which was to go to a block, draw that block, draw the buildings on it, put little arrows and numbers of what I saw and where it was. And that turned out to not be helpful at all typing it out. And it's not organized in the way that a professional might do it, but again, it's what I got away with. So, yes.
So I'm sure there's a lot of stone and metal
Yes.
plaques. Were there any materials for plaques that you found surprising or interesting?
There are a few wooden pieces. On PSU's campus, I think they're called the peace poles, that have information carved in them. And there's some plastic pieces in Northwest. But it's mostly wood and stone, and or metal and stone. It's mostly metal, very few stone pieces. The stone pieces were mainly in the side of the building, like the Wilcox 1812. For me, a building with a name is a memorial. They wanted you to know about this person, because it could just be 127 House Street. But it's not, it's the Wilcox building. So that's a memorial to someone. Washington Street is a memorial to someone. There are a few memorials that were memorializing the thing that they are made of. There are two pieces of the Murrah building from the Oklahoma City bombing in downtown Portland. And one of them is carved in the granite of that building. There's nothing about September 11th downtown yet, but there are two pieces from that. One in Terry Shrunk Park. That's where the piece of granite is.
Have you given any thought to the ethnography? I see these kind of memorials as things that older people put there for their peers, their imagined peers, and that it's being done less and less, and that younger people really don't relate to it at all. And it's, what I've seen is that the whole research of your family tree and all that, seems like that's a big thing to do when you're 12. It's like a certain period where that's interesting to do for people. So I'm kind of curious what you think about that in the future, these memorials or new memorials.
I didn't, because I was looking at all the trees, I didn't see the forest of that until I was done. And I had the first copy in my hands, and there was this thick section of Southwest and a really thick index and this tiny little splinter of Northwest, because Northwest has been built up and developed and things torn down. And there's not been any effort to preserve what was there. If I know there were buildings there that had plaques on them, and they're absolutely gone. So they're going away. That's something that's happened in Portland in waves. It tried to happen in 1912. It did happen in the 1950s. People thought all this ironwork was old-fashioned looking. And a lot of buildings were torn down. But what nobody knew was that the people who loved those buildings were stealing the ironwork from the scrap heap and taking it home. And if you go to where Saturday Market is, near the Firehouse Museum, there are pieces of the ironwork that people stole decades ago and kept in their house, and then when the city was starting to realize, oh, we should preserve these things again, they were given back to the city. Some of the ironwork you'll see inside, again, was just straight up stolen back then and now given back.
Do you have any favorites?
I like the Oregon, and I like Chapman Park. All the things in Chapman Park, which started out as a single column for soldiers from Guam, and then became also the Philippines, and also these other campaigns, and all the pioneer families too. And there are 2 cannons from the Civil War in Chapman Park, and how a cannon from North Carolina ends up in Portland, Oregon, and why there. The curious layering of it makes it feel more alive. That it's both this thing that people spent years and thousands of dollars putting together, but it's also just the stuff in somebody's closet, just the closet of downtown Portland. And you're pulling out, the Civil War nurses and the cannons and the bells and all this. Yes, please.
Did you ever come across any memorials where they didn't belong? Like say something had been torn down and somebody just happened to keep the memorial in the house or something like that?
There were some cases where a plaque was missing, and I later found out where it was. An example of that is there was a plaque that read Edith Green from the Greenhouse Kids, She Cared. There used to be a homeless shelter in town called Greenhouse. It was here for a long time. And when a new agency bought that building, the former social workers there were concerned that they would take the plaque away, so they stole it. But I've talked to the guy who has it and says, yeah, don't worry, it's safe, and when the time is right, we'll put it back. But usually when it's gone forever. Sometimes, like Tom Hardy's statue of the 3 Colts is dedicated to someone, so that will be included, and it's moved. So sometimes the public art moves. I guess that's the answer. Sometimes the public art that's dedicated to someone will move.
Have you come to any conclusions about the intentions of memorializing things? Like you just brought up the cannon that from Carolina and from South Carolina, is that right?
I think it's North Carolina.
North Carolina, sorry. From North Carolina. Do you find any consistent, beyond just remembering a person?
It's mostly contributors to the city and the state. That's a very common theme, and it's mostly to a person. It's very seldom to an organization. It's very seldom to an act of heroism, a police officer or a firefighter. It's usually a civic servant. Sometimes to a very personal friend, like to my friend Damien from his family. Hardly ever to a business. There are a few about businesses long ago, but hardly ever to a commercial business. It's the first thing I've published on Kindle, and I'm not very good at it. But if a person were to purchase it, as I fix it, it'll fix itself. So there's that. Try to make it inexpensive. Again, so that more people can do more things with it.
All right. Well, thanks very much.
Thank you.
And Trevor has a couple of copies of the book here for sale as well. So if you'd like to purchase one, speak with him. Thanks everyone for attending. The next Curiosity Club is September. That's not a month. February 21st with Zach Doherty of Panaview Imaging. Zach will be discussing his work with panoramic imagery and the methods behind it. He will be demonstrating the use of his gigapixel photography coupled with interactive interfaces, creating new ways to explore and experience digital photography and video. Should be really great. So yeah, see you next time. And there's flyers over by the beer and the chips, so definitely grab those on your way out so you can stay abreast of the future Curiosity Club. Got a great lineup for January and for 2012. All right, thanks everyone. Thanks, Trevor.
Thank you.